ID Alliance presents this week's short attention span sales tip. Good morning, everyone. It's Bill Farquharson, and over there is Bill Giles. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bill.
So let me tell you what's going on here, gang. I sent an email out, I sent a sales tip out a few weeks ago, and Bill responded to it. And Bill, I'm going to read your response here. And I invited Bill on the show, if you will, to talk more about it. He said, being an old school guy, I like talking to someone on the phone or in person versus email. As each year goes by, I believe the number of people who want to communicate via phone call continues to drop. Would love to hear your thoughts on dealing with this dynamic. How to find the right balance in reaching out to someone you've not had any communication with. So, Bill, you and I, it sounds like you and I started selling right about the same time, early 80s?
Early 80s, 1982.
Oh, 1982, perfect. Same exact year. And back then, what were our forms of communication?
That was the phone,
Okay.
or in person, or writing a letter.
Or writing a letter, or stopping by.
Right.
But there wasn't any voicemail until about 86, as I researched.
Right.
We had no email. Fax machines were called telecopiers. And we had a lot more FaceTime. And do you remember, Bill, do you remember office hours? Remember when buyers used to have office hours open to anyone?
Yes.
Right? And I always thought to myself, why would you stop that? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So tell me, what's changed over the years? Is it, I'm assuming it's more difficult to get through to someone.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, now we're not battling a gatekeeper, the receptionist answering the phone, but we're almost always going directly into voicemail. I used to, call people from a payphone when we had payphones because they wouldn't see the caller ID and they tended to answer the phone. In fact, I had a prospective customer say one time, "Do you know you're calling from a payphone?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "That's what I used to get you to answer the phone and talk to me today." And he laughed, and so it kind of worked. But, the advent of email, which is a great way to communicate, except when there's, somebody upset or it's an emotional issue, then it's not a great way to communicate. And in that case, I always revert back to picking up the phone to talk in person or actually just stopping by to see them.
Well, but the difference is that when you're stopping by like we used to, right? They get
Right.
this. They get oral communication. They get your physical presence.
Right.
I'm 6'6", so when I walk in the room, it's like, geez, there's a tall guy. You can't get that over the phone. You can't display that over email.
Right.
So part of what we were taught to do, you really have to take your personality, and when it walks through the door, you got to play that card. But now we can't. So have you found? I mean, how do you take your 35 years of knowledge, your confidence, your been there, done that, and put it into an email or a voicemail? Have you found any ideas for that?
Well, we all have that sort of, approximately 1 minute elevator speech that says who we are and what we do. And I use variations on that in my voicemail and email. I'm patiently persistent. That's what one of my clients said to describe, how I am to work with, as well as, trustworthy and always come through for them. So I mention those things in my email, and I think sometimes, it's got to be just something to set yourself apart from, "Hey, this is Bill Giles. I'm calling. Can we meet?"
Oh, sure. I mean, the things, what we control, what we can control. You can put your personality into the phone call, into a voicemail even. A voicemail, I consider a voicemail to be an audition. This is you demonstrating your professionalism, your attitude, your knowledge. Are you fun? Are you funny? Are you not? Who are you? You can put that into a voicemail, being concise and professional at the same time. But you know what? You before we turned on the recording button, you said, it's about balance. How do I balance my approach? so that there's probably no one answer, right, Bill? I mean, you can still bang on the door. Maybe you'll
Sure.
get in. You should call. You should email. You probably should put something in writing. And one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is be careful what you commit to writing.
Sure.
All right, that's a big key. You have to really, and Kelly Malazzi and I are going to talk about this in a few weeks. We recorded a session the other day called "When to Email, When to Skype, When to Be There in Person." But it is a balance, and there's no. It's like I said when you took the sales challenge. There's no right or wrong prospecting approach. You know what? But you mentioned it perfectly. Being pleasantly persistent is the key. Being diligent is the key. And I would guess that that's something that worked in 1982 when you and I started, and something that is still quite important today. As important, Bill, more important, the diligence piece?
Oh, I think it's extremely important, maybe more so today, because I think it's harder to connect. The being persistent, it's also, finding out how they like to communicate. Do they prefer email? Do they prefer voice? Do they prefer seeing you in person? I'll mix it up and try and find out what gets the best response from them. And if they don't respond, I try something different. With a prospective client a couple weeks ago, I'd met this person already, submitted a proposal, trying to get them to make a decision, and they kind of went dark for about 3 or 4 weeks. And one day I just stopped by cold late in the afternoon, and the guy came out and talked to me. So you're right. There isn't any right or wrong answer.
But the fact that, and I've said this for 1,000 years, gang, the fact that you do it, the fact that you make the calls, the fact that you are diligent, that's the key. It is. You can't know. Bill cannot know my communication preference from the outside. He can't. So if he's calling on me and he's sending email after email or leaving voicemail, he could be shouting into the abyss. Or maybe
Right.
I'm busy on another project. But by being diligent, that's the thing that you can control. By being upbeat and positive and making that extra call.
And you don't know what's going on in their day or their week or their month. A lot of it is just calling or hitting at the right time. And that's just guesswork. I'll call before 8 a.m. I'll call at lunchtime. I'll call after 5 o'clock if normal business hours haven't worked. Try to find a time when they might pick up the phone. I mean, historically, between 3 and 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon were always my best prospecting times. The week's winding down. People are, trying to push things off their plate for the weekend. I just find they're more receptive to, taking a phone call or chat to somebody that, they might not want to talk to during the middle of the week.
And you know what, though? When I ask a group of salespeople what's the worst time of the week to make a sales call, they say Friday afternoon. So you're having success, Bill, because everybody else is saying this is a lousy time to call.
Right.
Everyone's going left. Bill's going right. He's having some success. The other thing to remember here, gang, is that at some point, prospecting takes on the exact same qualities as advertising. The car manufacturers keep hitting us with ads, but we only need a car every 3 or 4 years, and yet they want to be top of mind. Diligence is omnipotent. It's incredibly important, and that's going to be your big takeaway. Now, finding someone's communication style, including yours. Bill, what's your best communication style? Is it in person? Is it over the phone? Is it email and the written word?
I think in person is probably my best communication style. I've gotten a lot better, after, almost 35 years of doing this in writing, not one of my strong points, but I've gotten a lot better at doing that. My first contact with somebody is always a written letter.
Yeah.
And I'll mix up how I send it, whether it's the U.S. Postal Service, whether it's UPS or FedEx overnight, depending on how I want to try and get their attention.
So a wide variety, a lot of diligence, understand your skills in terms of written word versus spoken word, But make the calls, make the calls, make the calls. Anybody like Bill, when he leaves the sales challenge, and I said, so what's your secret? What would you tell me to tell others? The answer is always the same: diligence. Just persistency. Those are the ones that are going to win, regardless of the medium that is used. All right, Mr. Giles, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Bill.
And I'm sure we'll talk again. We'll come up with something else. And if anybody else has a subject they want to talk about, if it's something that you're passionate about and it makes sense and some information we want to share, you could be right over there next to me. So, all right, Bill, thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, good selling week, everybody.